When I was about 16, it was a cold, snowy Christmas Eve. The world outside our house was silent, wrapped in a thick blanket of snow that reflected the colorful glow of Christmas lights from the neighboring houses. Inside, it was warm and cheerful. My parents and I were settled in the living room, following our yearly tradition of sipping hot cocoa, opening stocking gifts, and laughing at the little surprises we had chosen for each other. The Christmas tree sparkled, filling the room with a cozy glow, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. Then, out of nowhere, a loud knock shattered the peaceful evening. 3 heavy, deliberate bangs on the front door startled us all. My dad, always the cautious one, immediately got up to check the window. The snow outside was untouched, pristine, and there was no one in sight. Still curious, he unlocked the door and opened it wide, letting in a gust of icy air. What we found was both unexpected and unsettling. A black cat lay sprawled across the threshold, its fur matted and streaked with blood. It wasn't dead. Its sides rose and fell weakly, but it was clearly injured and shivering in the freezing cold. We all looked at each other, confused. How had it gotten there? Even stranger, there were no footprints in the snow, no tire tracks, no sign that anyone had come up to our door. It was as if the cat had appeared out of thin air. At first, we hesitated. The situation was eerie, almost unnatural. But my mom and I are both huge animal lovers, and we couldn't stand the thought of leaving the poor thing outside to suffer. My dad grabbed an old towel, wrapped the cat carefully, and brought it inside, while my mom prepared a makeshift bed near the fireplace. The cat, a young male, was clearly in rough shape, but he relaxed a little as the warmth of the house began to seep into him. Over the next few days, we did everything we could to care for him. He was scared and skittish at first, but as his strength returned, he began to trust us. When the vet's office reopened after the holidays, we took him in. The vet confirmed that he'd been in a bad fight, likely with another animal, but assured us that he would recover fully with time. Once he was doing better, my mom decided to rehome him with a family friend who lived a few blocks away. They named him Ash, a fitting name for his sleek black fur and fiery spirit, and he quickly became a beloved member of their family. Months passed, and Ash settled into his new home. Then one fateful night, he proved he wasn't just any ordinary cat. Around midnight, he began howling and scratching at the doors, frantically trying to wake the family. His cries were so loud and desperate that everyone in the house got up to see what was wrong. That's when they noticed the smoke. The garage, where one of their cars was parked, was on fire, and the flames were spreading fast. The family barely had time to react. They called the fire department and evacuated the house as quickly as they could. The fire, which had started due to an electrical fault, had already consumed much of the garage. One of the cars was engulfed in flames, and the heat was threatening to spread to the rest of the house. Thanks to Ash's warning, everyone got out safely, and the firefighters managed to contain the blaze before it caused even more damage. After that night, Ash wasn't just their pet. He was their hero. In honor of his bravery, they joked that he was a little guardian angel. The name Ash began to mean even more, symbolic of the fire he had helped save them from and the rebirth of their gratitude for him. Ash thrived in his new role as the family's beloved guardian. He lived a long, happy life with them, always a reminder of how even the most mysterious and unsettling moments can lead to something extraordinary. Looking back, we still don't know how Ash came to our door that snowy Christmas Eve. The lack of footprints, the eerie timing. It's something my family and I talk about every holiday season. But no matter how strange it was, it's a story that reminds us of the unexpected ways life has of bringing us together. It was Christmas Eve, and I was 14. The world outside was blanketed in snow, and the air was crisp and silent. Despite the cold, I had an itch to ride my horse, Starfire. He was a strong, spirited horse with a coat as black as coal, and I loved the way his breath steamed in the winter air. The stables were about a mile from my house, a distance I'd grown used to walking, so I bundled up and set off, eager for a ride. After saddling Starfire, I led him through the snow-covered fields. The landscape was serene, with the occasional crunch of snow under his hooves. I had a tradition of tying him to my parents' porch whenever I rode up to the house, but on this particular evening, things took an unexpected turn. As I prepared to take Starfire back to the stables, one of my friends, Emily, came walking up. She looked cold, so I offered her a ride to her house. Starfire carried us easily through the snow, his steady gait giving no indication of the wildness to come. After dropping Emily off, I turned Starfire around to head home. That's when he seemed to decide he wanted to run. At first, I didn't think much of it. Starfire loved to stretch his legs, and I enjoyed the exhilaration of the wind in my face. But as we neared a crossroads, I spotted Emily's little sister walking along the edge of the road. I pulled on the reins to slow him down, intending to stop and offer her a ride, but Starfire had other ideas. He didn't slow, didn't stop. He galloped straight past her, completely ignoring my commands. I laughed nervously, calling out an apology as we thundered by. But unease began to creep in. Starfire's speed increased, and I tugged hard on the reins, trying to gain control. My laughter faded as I realized he wasn't listening. The reins felt useless in my hands as he barreled straight down the driveway, past the house and out onto the road. The snow-covered road stretched ahead, empty at first, but I could see cars crossing at the intersection up ahead. Panic surged as Starfire galloped at full speed, showing no sign of stopping. I pulled harder, my legs braced and my arms straining with everything I had. It was no use. When we reached the intersection, Starfire tried to jump over a massive car, a shiny, brand-new Ford LTD. Back then, cars were like tanks, long and heavy. He didn't make it. His chest collided with the car, and I was thrown forward, tumbling down the icy road. The world spun as I hit the ground, skidding to a stop several feet away. Somehow, I landed on my left wrist, the pain sharp and immediate. My thick winter coat and the layers of jeans I'd worn saved me from road rash, but my wrist was badly injured. Starfire, meanwhile, had done a perfect somersault and slid to a stop past the intersection. He stood up, shaken but alive, with a scrape on his hindquarters from the impact. As luck would have it, a policeman had been parked at the intersection and witnessed the entire event. He rushed over to check on me, his face pale with concern. After ensuring I was stable, he tried to contact the local ambulance service. But, in true small-town fashion, they were out to lunch. With no other option, the officer loaded me into his patrol car and drove me to the ambulance driver's house. I sat awkwardly in their living room, cradling my throbbing wrist, while their kids stared at me like I'd stepped out of a wild Western movie. It was surreal, sitting there in their cozy home, waiting for the ambulance crew to finish their sandwiches and return to work. Eventually, the ambulance crew arrived, and I was taken to the hospital, where they confirmed my wrist was fractured. Starfire and I both recovered, though it took weeks for me to get back in the saddle. To this day, I remember that Christmas Eve as a mix of chaos, pain, and gratitude. Starfire remained my loyal companion, though I never let him forget his wild antics that snowy night. It was Christmas Eve, and I was 16. A heavy snowstorm had blanketed the neighborhood, and the roads were nearly impassable. My parents were stuck at my aunt's house across town, leaving me and my younger brother, Lucas, home alone. They'd promised to be back before midnight, but with the snow piling up, I wasn't so sure. Inside, the house was warm, the fireplace crackling softly, and the scent of fresh pine from the Christmas tree filled the air. Lucas and I were camped out in the living room, sipping hot cocoa and watching an old Christmas movie. The tree lights twinkled, casting a colorful glow over the room. "Think they'll make it back in time?" Lucas asked, peeking through the window at the storm. "Probably not," I said with a shrug, trying to sound unconcerned. "But we'll be fine." It was around 10:30 p.m. when we heard it. A soft knock at the front door. Lucas, and I froze. Nobody would be out in this weather, especially not on our quiet, tucked-away street. For a moment, I thought I might have imagined it, but then it came again. Knock, knock. Stay here, I told Lucas, setting my mug down and grabbing my phone. I walked cautiously to the door, peering through the peephole. No one was there. I opened the door a crack, letting in a gust of icy wind. The porch was empty, the snow pristine. No footprints, no tire tracks. Just a silent, unbroken blanket of white stretching into the darkness. Confused, I shut the door and double-checked the lock. Who was it? Lucas called from the living room. No one, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Probably just the wind, but deep down, I didn't believe that. A few minutes later, the knocking started again, louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. Lucas came to stand beside me, clutching his blanket. This isn't funny, he said, his voice shaking. I know, I muttered. This time, I didn't bother with the peephole. I flung the door open, ready to confront whoever was messing with us. But once again, there was nothing there. The snow was untouched, the night silent except for the whisper of the wind. I stepped outside, my breath fogging in the freezing air, and looked around. The streetlights barely pierced the swirling snow, and I could just make out the dark outlines of the houses across the street. Hello, I called, my voice trembling. No answer. I quickly went back inside, locking the door behind me. Lucas was pale, his eyes wide. What's going on? I don't know, I admitted. But let's stay in here, okay? We tried to settle back on the couch, but the atmosphere had changed. The cozy warmth of the living room now felt oppressive, like the walls were closing in. The tree lights seemed too bright, casting long, flickering shadows. And then we heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps crunching in the snow outside the window. Lucas and I stared at each other, frozen. Slowly, I turned to the window, half expecting to see someone staring back at us. But there was nothing there. Just the snow falling steadily outside. The footsteps stopped. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, from somewhere near the back of the house, came a loud thump. Upstairs, I whispered, grabbing Lucas's hand. We darted up to my room, locking the door behind us. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my fingers shaking. 911. What's your emergency? I explained what was happening, trying to keep my voice steady. The dispatcher assured me that an officer was on the way, but with the storm, it could take some time. Lucas and I huddled together, our ears straining for any sound. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity. Then, just as I began to think we'd imagined it all, the doorknob rattled. My blood ran cold. Someone was outside the bedroom door. Who's there? I demanded, my voice shaking. No answer. I grabbed a heavy lamp from my nightstand, ready to swing it if the door opened. But the rattling stopped and footsteps retreated down the hall. A few minutes later, we heard the wail of sirens in the distance. Relief washed over me as I saw the flashing lights through the bedroom window. When the police arrived, they found the front door open and a set of footprints leading around the house, stopping beneath the living room window. But here's the strange part. The footprints didn't lead away. They stopped abruptly, as if whoever or whatever it was had vanished into thin air. The officers searched the house and the surrounding area but found nothing. They chalked it up to a prank, probably someone from the neighborhood. But Lucas and I knew better. We never spent another Christmas Eve alone after that. And every year, when the snow falls thick and the night grows quiet, I remember those knocks on the door and the footsteps that didn't leave.